You think you can just go to Costco when things get bad. You think your pantry, with 3 cans of soup and a bag of pasta, is pretty good. You think when the news shows footage of food riots, you'll have time to make a shopping list and beat the crowd. That's what 99% of people believe right now, and that belief will get you into a fist fight over the last bag of rice while your family goes hungry at home. You've been lied to about food security. Here's the number that should terrify you. During the Shanghai COVID lockdown in April 2022, grocery delivery apps crashed in 4 minutes from announcement to total system failure. 4 minutes. In Kyiv, February 24, 2022, supermarket shelves were completely stripped in 6 hours. Your "I'll stock up when I need to" plan has a 6-hour operational window, and you'll be competing with 10,000 other people in your zip code who had the exact same brilliant idea. Wrong. Dead wrong. Here's what's actually happening right now. 3 major grain exporters are in contested zones. Russia controls 18% of global wheat exports and just extended their export restrictions through August 2025. India restricted rice exports, tightening Asian markets by 40%. Food supply chains operate on 3-day inventory cycles. When Taiwan tensions spiked in August 2022, rice prices jumped 40% in 72 hours across Asian markets. The window to build reserves at peacetime prices is closing in the next 60 to 90 days. Here's what separates the 1% from the 99%. The 99% think they'll figure it out when it happens. The 1% already have 90 to 180-day stockpiles positioned and rotated. In August 2022, I told my audience that grain prices would spike 30 to 40% within 90 days if Taiwan tensions escalated. By November, rice futures were up 38%. Not because I'm psychic, but because I read shipping lane vulnerability reports. I got the Ukraine invasion timing wrong by 11 days, but I got the economic cascade right. Today, I'm giving you the exact framework. The 5-law caloric survival protocol. This is how you build a complete 90-day food supply for under $500 starting this week. Here's the crisis nobody's connecting. One semiconductor fabrication plant in Taiwan goes offline from military action or blockade. Within 96 hours, global tech manufacturing slows by 15%. That slowdown hits freight logistics software. Freight delivery slows from 3-day cycles to 5-day cycles. Grocery retailers can't absorb the buffer because their business model assumes just-in-time delivery. Within 3 weeks, a regional conflict 7,000 miles away has reduced the food variety in your local supermarket by 30%. This is the cascading dependency failure. When electricity fails, refrigeration fails. When refrigeration fails, medical supply chains fail. When medical supplies fail, minor injuries become fatal. Here's what the media is telling you. Supply chains are resilient. Strategic food reserves are adequate. There's no immediate threat to food security. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Let me be very specific about why that's a lie. Strategic reserves are measured in days, not months, and they're allocated to military and hospitals first, not civilians. The USDA's emergency food stockpile would feed the U.S. population for exactly 6 days at full distribution. Real-world efficiency? Cut that number in half. You're looking at 3 days of government food assistance if everything goes perfectly. Here are the hyper-specific numbers. The average American household has 3.7 days of food currently on hand. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, October 22, 1962, every grocery store within 50 miles of Washington, D.C. was stripped completely bare within 2 hours of President Kennedy's televised address. That was 60 years ago, when 40% of the population still remembered rationing. Today, 73% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck with zero food buffer. The historical parallel everyone's missing. The siege of Sarajevo started April 5, 1992. Population 435,000. Residents thought it would last 2 weeks, It lasted 425 days, nearly 4 years. By day 90, the average resident had lost 35 pounds from starvation. The UN delivered 2,000 calories per person per day through airlift. Actual average intake was 900 calories per day because of distribution failures, spoilage, and theft. The people who survived had pre-positioned food stocks before the siege began. And it gets worse, because when the trucks stop rolling, you're not just fighting for food. You're fighting for water to cook it with, fuel to heat it with, and the security to keep your neighbors from taking it. Everyone thinks retail supply chains are robust, that stores will restock. That's what kills you when the system breaks. Modern supermarkets operate on just-in-time inventory systems designed for efficiency, not resilience. Your local grocery store has exactly enough product to meet projected demand plus a 15 to 20% buffer. When demand spikes by 300 to 800% overnight, that buffer evaporates in hours. Let me be very specific about the math. A typical suburban supermarket services approximately 15,000 to 20,000 people. It maintains warehouse capacity for roughly 72 hours of normal customer traffic. But when crisis hits, you get 5,000 people in the first 6 hours, each buying 3 to 5 times their normal volume. The store is facing 15 times normal demand. The system breaks within 72 hours. Shanghai proved this in April 2022. 4 minutes to delivery app failure, 10 days to food crisis. The Cuban Missile Crisis proved it in 1962. 2 hours to completely stripped shelves. This is the 72-hour retail collapse rule. When crisis indicators hit threshold, civilian supply chains fail within 72 hours maximum. The 99% believe they'll go early and beat the rush. The 1% know that early means right now, not when you see it on the news. By the time CNN shows you footage of empty shelves, you're 48 hours too late. Your competition isn't everyone. It's the 30 to 40% who are also paying attention. You need to be in the first 10%. That means pre-positioning now. So if you can't rely on stores, what do you rely on? Most people stockpile what tastes good. Canned chili, beef jerky, freeze-dried camping meals. That's $2,000 spent on 30 days of mediocre survival. The 1% stockpile, what keeps you alive. The caloric trinity protocol. Survival food storage requires 3 components in exact ratio. Carbohydrates, 60%, protein, 20%, fats, 20%. Violate this ratio, and you're buying expensive starvation. Here's the science. The human body needs approximately 2,000 calories per day to maintain baseline function. Cut below them 1,500 for extended periods, and you enter metabolic decline. Your body cannibalizes muscle tissue. Cognitive function degrades. This is what happened in Sarajevo. 900 calories per day for 4 years. Mass malnutrition despite UN aid. Here's the math for a 90-day supply for one person. 2,000 calories per day times 90 days equals 180,000 total calories needed. 60% carbs equals 66 pounds of rice, beans, and oats. 20% protein equals 20 pounds of dried protein sources. 20% fats equals 9 pounds of oils and nuts. Total food weight, approximately 95 pounds per person. Here's the chemistry. Carbohydrates are your survival foundation. Rice provides 1,650 calories per pound. Beans provide 1,950 calories per pound. Compare that to beef jerky at $4 to $6 per ounce, providing approximately 100 calories. You're paying 40 times more per calorie for jerky. You can build the carbohydrate base of a 90-day supply for $150. Add protein and fats, and you're at $487 total for one person. But this only works if you solve the next problem. You know what happens to 99% of survival stockpiles? They sit in a basement for 5 years, expire, and get thrown out. Zero return on investment. The rotation paradox. Food you don't eat regularly is food you won't eat in crisis. Your stockpile must be your daily diet on a 90-day delay. Here's why this matters. In crisis, your digestive system is already under stress. The last thing you need is unfamiliar foods your gut bacteria aren't adapted to. You'll get diarrhea, cramping, nutrient malabsorption. Sarajevo survivors who tried to survive on unfamiliar UN rations suffered significantly higher malnutrition rates than those who ate familiar staples. Here's the system. You build a 90-day stockpile, but you eat from the back of it continuously. Every week, you pull from your oldest stock and replace with fresh purchases. Your food is always fresh, always within 90 days of purchase. You're constantly eating your survival diet right now when there's no pressure, so your body is adapted. You're practicing crisis meal preparation every single week. The math. If you eat rice 3 times per week and stockpile 66 pounds, you're consuming approximately 3 pounds per month. Your entire stockpile cycles through in 22 months. Everything stays fresh. Nothing expires. Stop. Let me be very specific about this. The 99% buy survival buckets, put them in the garage, and forget about them. The 1% integrate food storage into normal daily life. The stockpile isn't separate from regular living. It is regular living, just with a deeper time buffer. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Even if you do everything right, you're still going to die if you don't account for water. Most people stop paying attention here. Don't be most people, because this is where the math gets brutal. Every pound of dehydrated food requires 3 to 4 pounds of water to reconstitute. If you have 95 pounds of dried food, you need 285 to 380 pounds of water just for cooking. That's 34 to 45 gallons solely for food preparation. Now add 1 gallon per person per day for drinking, 90 gallons per person. You're at 135 gallons per person minimum. Let me be very specific about the chemistry. White rice at 10% moisture content, stored with oxygen absorbers, will remain edible for 30 years. But when you eat it, you need to add back that moisture. 1 cup of dry rice requires 2 cups of water to cook. 1 pound of dry beans requires 3 cups of water. Your food stockpile is essentially dehydrated calories that's completely useless without water. Here's what kills people. They stockpile 90 days of food, but only 5 days of water. When municipal water systems fail within 48 to 72 hours of grid failure, they have food they cannot prepare. This is the water multiplier effect. Your food plan is worthless without a water plan that's 4 times larger by weight. The 99% focus exclusively on food and treat water as an afterthought. The 1% understand that water is the limiting factor. You can survive 30 days without food. You can survive 3 days without water. Everyone assumes the crisis will be isolated. That compartmentalized thinking is what gets you killed when systems start cascading. Here's the reality. When electricity fails, refrigeration fails immediately. When refrigeration fails, medical supply chains fail within 72 hours. When hospitals are overwhelmed, emergency services degrade. When civil order becomes fragile, your 90-day food stockpile makes you a high-value target. This is the cascading dependency failure. Modern infrastructure is interconnected. When one system fails, everything fails together. Let me show you the timeline. Hour 0, grid failure. Hour 24, municipal water pressure drops. Hour 48, sewage systems back up. Hour 72, hospitals begin turning away patients. Day 5, civil unrest begins. Day 7, law enforcement is overwhelmed. Day 10, you're in a fully collapsed environment where your food stockpile and your ability to defend it are the only things keeping your family alive. The 99% prepare for one variable. The 1% prepare for cascading failure across all systems simultaneously. They have food that doesn't require refrigeration. They have water that doesn't require municipal supply. They have cooking methods that don't require grid electricity. They've built redundancy into every critical system. So here's where we are. Retail supply chains collapse in 72 hours. You need 180,000 calories per person, structured as 60-20-20 carb, protein, fat. Your stockpile must be foods you already eat in rotation. You need 4 pounds of water for every 1 pound of dehydrated food. And when infrastructure fails, everything fails together. That's the baseline reality. Now layer on the current threat environment. 3 major grain exporters in contested zones. Russia controlling 18% of global wheat with extended export restrictions. Fertilizer costs up 60% year over year. Next season's crop yields projected down 12 to 15%. Houthi attacks forcing 40% of container traffic to reroute, adding 10 to 14 days to shipping times. Every single one of these variables is trending in the wrong direction, while your grocery store still looks fully stocked. Here's what the 99% think will happen. The government will handle it. FEMA will distribute supplies. We'll band together as a community. That's the delusion. Here's the actual timeline. Hour 0, crisis announcement. Hour 2, stores stripped. Hour 6, panic buying complete. Day 3, supply chains fully collapsed. Day 7, government rations begin if you're in a major city and if logistics are functional. Day 10, average household runs out of food. Day 14, civil unrest begins. Day 30, anyone without stockpiles is now in survival negotiation mode. The 99% will spend day 10 through day 90 trying to acquire food. The 1% will spend day 10 through day 90 securing their position and waiting for stabilization. Let's talk cost. The 99% approach. Panic buy whatever's left on day 2. Spend $800 to $200 on overpriced freeze-dried meals. Run out by day 45. Total cost, $200, plus whatever you have to trade or risk to acquire more food. The 1% approach. Systematic build over 4 to 6 weeks starting now. $487 per person for complete caloric foundation. Properly stored with oxygen absorbers. Rotated continuously. Total cost, $487 plus peace of mind for 3 months. Here's the choice. Spend $500 today in peacetime prices, or spend $5,000 in crisis prices if you can even find food to buy. While the 99% are standing in FEMA lines, hoping for rations that may not arrive, you need to be in your home eating from your stockpile. While they're negotiating with neighbors over a can of soup, you need to be maintaining operational security. While they're trying to figure out where their next meal comes from, you need to be monitoring indicators for stabilization. Here's what's developed in the last 30 days. Russia extended wheat export restrictions through August 2025. That's 18% of global wheat supply under controlled release. India's rice export restrictions continue tightening markets. Rice futures are up 23% in the last 90 days. Fertilizer costs are up 60% year over year. Houthi attacks have forced 40% of container traffic to reroute around Africa, adding 10 to 14 days to shipping times. Leading indicators to monitor: Baltic Dry Index, shipping costs, rice and wheat futures, prices on CME, fertilizer export volumes from Black Sea ports, USDA crop yield reports. The parallel to watch is the 1970s oil crisis. October 1973, OPEC oil embargo begins. Within 30 days, oil prices quadrupled. But food prices spiked 40% within 6 months because modern agriculture runs on petroleum. The crisis lasted 5 months, but food prices never returned to pre-crisis levels. Key difference this time: 1973 was one variable. This time we're looking at simultaneous supply restriction, plus demand surge, plus currency instability, plus infrastructure vulnerability. The speed of collapse is exponentially faster. Here's your decision matrix. If fertilizer costs increase another 20%, or USDA shows 10% yield decreases, begin aggressive stockpile building. Timeline: 60 to 90 days before retail price spikes. If sudden crisis event develops, Taiwan invasion or major infrastructure attack, you have 72 hours maximum. Move immediately. Sources to monitor: USDA World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates. Baltic Dry Index at investing.com, indices, Baltic Dry. HTTP, investing.com, indices, Baltic Dry. CME Grain Futures at cmegroup.com, markets and agriculture. HTML, HTTP, megroup.com, on the markets and agriculture. Lock this in. Here's the complete protocol. Law number 1, the 72-hour retail collapse rule. Crisis to empty shelves in 72 hours. Position now. Law number 2, the caloric trinity. Protocol: 60% carbs, 20% protein, 20% fats. 180,000 calories per person. Costs $487. Law number 3, the rotation. Paradox: eat what you store what you eat. Your stockpile is your daily diet on a 90-day delay. Law number 4, the water multiplier effect. 4 pounds of water for every 1 pound of dried food. 135 gallons minimum per person. Law number 5, the cascading dependency failure. Plan for zero infrastructure. Here's your execution priority. Critical: next 48 hours. Calculate household caloric needs. 2,000 calories times number of people times 90 days. Go to Costco, Sam's Club, or restaurant supply stores this week. Buy 50-pound bags of rice, 25-pound bags of beans, bulk oats. Order Mylar bags and 300 cc oxygen absorbers from Amazon today. Secure water storage, 5 5-gallon jugs per person minimum. Total investment, approximately $200 per person. Priority: next 2 weeks. Complete protein and fat requirements: canned tuna, peanut butter, cooking oil, powdered milk, protein powder. Purchase food-grade 5-gallon buckets with Gamma Seal lids. Begin repackaging rice and beans into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Set up rotation system. Strategic: next 3 months, build supplementary supplies. Multivitamins, salt, sugar, spices. Acquire alternative cooking methods. Camping stove with propane. Develop water purification capability. Sawyer filters, life straw, bleach. Establish barter inventory. Coffee, alcohol, cigarettes, batteries. Here's your conditional monitoring logic. If fertilizer prices increase another 20%, check USDA crop yield projections. If USDA downgrades yields by 10% or more, you have 90 days before supply constraints hit retail prices. If rice or wheat futures jump 20% in 30 days, that's institutional panic positioning. Accelerate purchasing immediately. If Baltic Dry Index spikes above 2,500, complete stockpile within 2 weeks. Let me be crystal clear. I am not predicting war starts on a specific date. What I'm providing is intelligence-driven analysis based on current grain export restrictions, fertilizer supply chain disruptions, shipping lane vulnerabilities, and historical crisis patterns. The convergence of these variables creates a probability window. The cost of preparation is $500. The cost of being wrong when you're unprepared could be your family's survival. Here's what separates the 1% from the 99%. The 99% will ignore this briefing. They'll nod along, agree it makes sense, and then go back to scrolling social media. They'll trust headlines that tell them supply chains are resilient. They'll trust government assurances, and when crisis hits, they will be standing in line at a stripped grocery store, surrounded by 5,000 other people who had the same plan. They will spend day 10 through day 90 trying to acquire food. They will learn what hunger actually feels like. The 1% will track the leading indicators I just gave you. They will build their stockpile position while prices are stable and supply is available. They will integrate food storage into their normal daily routine. They will understand that preparation is about having options when everyone else has none. They will maintain operational security, and they will survive. Which one are you? Most people watching this won't do anything. They'll consume this information like entertainment, feel slightly anxious for 20 minutes, and forget about it by tomorrow morning. Natural selection has always worked through preparation differentials. The only question is whether you're going to be in the 1% who understand this, or the 99% who learn it the hard way. Most people won't figure this out until they're standing in an empty grocery store on day 3 of the crisis, and by then it's too late. Will you be one of them, or will you be the person who built their stockpile 6 weeks earlier when everyone else thought you were overreacting? Next briefing, I'm going to show you the infrastructure collapse timeline and how to maintain security when your neighbors realize you have food and they don't. Because having a 90-day stockpile makes you a high-value target in a collapsed environment. That briefing drops in 72 hours. Eyes open, squad. This is not a drill.